All right, welcome to Are You a Saint? I don't know what episode it is. Today we're going to be talking about how I turned down a potential like 10K a month offer basically. So, I was reached out by this guy who basically turns people into like coaches, like mentors. And he basically used all the tactics that he would teach me how to use to get people to want to sign up for these like $3,000 monthly or 2 month long mentorship things. It's not like the mentorship is wrong. If you really do have some sort of skill or some advice you can give someone, like I do think that it would be beneficial for some people to spend a lot of one-on-one time with me over a month. But just the way he funneled it and explained it, it was very businesslike. When I was sitting in the call with him, he somehow managed to convince me that I basically had to work with him, that I would regret deeply not paying him $9,000 for a 3 month mentorship thing, by using all these salesy tactics, etc. And honestly, I bet you if I did work with him, I would have been making decent money in a few months. But the main reason I decided not to work with him, not to do that kind of counseling thing, is number one, because he basically made it like, we're only going to give time to people who are able to spend the money. You basically create this filtering thing where people don't even get to talk with you unless they are in a position financially and mentally to give you a bunch of stuff. And to me, that just felt a little wrong, right? Especially with the spiritual stuff. It's not like obviously it makes sense if it's like my own personal one-on-one time, right? But to limit that based on people's financial backgrounds is kind of crazy. And the main actual reason why I decided not to work with him is because after the call, I felt this deep fear that I would regret not working with him. He basically used this, he basically instilled this intense fear in me that if I didn't choose to work with him, my life would like collapse, you know? And I didn't like that feeling of fear. And I would hate to instill that fear in other people. The whole point of this spiritual stuff, non-duality, etc., is to see through the person who is afraid and work on that, basically, with the end goal of there being no fear because it's all love. You know you're safe no matter what because you're a part of life, just like a wave isn't afraid to crash because it is the ocean. So to instill fear in someone as like a sales tactic, and like that's the whole business strategy to make more money by using fear, it just felt really wrong to me. And I'm very lucky that I had some loved ones around me who I talked to after it. Also, another thing, he basically gave you a huge discount if you did it within 24 hours. You sent him 3 racks and committed within 24 hours. And that was like gross to me. But thankfully, I had some voices of reason. And the biggest benefit, the thing that helped me not make that rash decision, was meditating on it. I just sat down on this long train journey after and just like sat with the feeling of fear and made sure I wasn't making a decision because of fear. And as I sat with it more and more, as the fear slowly died away, as it does when you watch it and let it be there, I just all of a sudden had all this space to see what was happening, to realize this isn't what I wanted. And here we are, right? I just released a Ko-Fi page where you guys can donate, buy me like meals, rooms, and you guys can do like funny stuff, like tell me, like someone told me you have to get Popeyes, someone told me to get a very specific bowl of ramen, like fun, interesting stuff like that. And with like the overarching goal of building a retreat center in Northern California. I mean, I'll link it down below if you want to like read more about this whole stuff in the Ko-Fi. Um, oh, but another thing, that was a very eye-opening experience because if I decided to work with him, I would be making more money a year from now. Like I would have more money a year from now. But I realized that that's not what I want. This whole time I was thinking, okay, I'm doing all of this to help people, to spread love, but I need to have money for it to work, right? So the money slowly became an important part of it, right? But then as soon as I had this offer, all I had to do was say yes, and I would have been making like thousands of dollars a month. To have that choice right in front of me, for it to not be something far away, it showed me that the point of this isn't the money. I don't need to buy a nice piece of land for a retreat center to spread love. The more freely the love is spread, this message is spread, the more it'll like snowball in the real world. And that's way more important than buying an extra acre of land to do a retreat center, you know? And it just like shifted the whole perception on what I'm doing. And now I feel way more comfortable asking for donations, way more comfortable doing free calls, offering all this stuff for free, creating a free school community, which isn't out yet, but will be hopefully by in like a week or two. But it just like shifted the whole perception. I genuinely know it's all love now. Everything I do, posting online, whatever, it's just love. It's just for spreading love, not for the money part. And hear me out. Okay, so I've been thinking about this stuff, you know, or ideas have been coming to me over time, how to make this sustainable, because I do need about $800 to $1,000 a month just to like live very cheaply in like Asia and India, right? I'm gonna always offer free 10-minute calls, always, you know, in my bio, or just DM me actually. Always offer those. And then for people who are interested, I do like the idea of working one-on-one for a month, doing like 30-minute call to an hour call every week. You guys can text me, voice messages throughout the week, and we can like really work on this together, because I would have loved to have that when I started on this spiritual journey. I was very alone, trying to figure stuff out, watching YouTube videos, books, etc. But to charge nothing at all until the end for an optional donation. I know that's kind of crazy, and it's opening me up to, I know people are going to abuse it, but I genuinely believe that that's the only way to do this right. You know, like I did some 10-minute calls yesterday, I have a bunch more today, and as I was thinking of like offering them like a paid course thing or paid one-on-one stuff, I felt like icky, and I was like, I didn't, you know, like it felt wrong. So I think that's the best way to do it. You know, feel free to comment what you guys think about that, if you guys would be interested. But yeah, I really do think just like giving all the value, everything, free one-on-one for a whole month, whatever. And then afterwards, based on the value you think I gave you and however much you want to give, to basically help me keep doing this to help more people, right? Because if we work one-on-one for a month and you're just like blissed out afterwards, right? The self, the ego is almost completely gone. You feel way more secure. Obviously, you're going to want other people to experience that too, because it's all love. And, you know, I assume it'll just work out like that. Another beautiful little karmic connection that happened that day, literally right before, as I was heading to the cafe to call that course seller guy, I ended up hitchhiking a ride with this like farmer dude in like middle of nowhere, Romania, right? And we're like talking in broken English, and I ask him, you know, what's your job? How do you make money? And he says, I don't work. I have no job. All I do, he just showed me a video of his horses and animals, you know, and he said God will provide for him. And that just like stuck with me. Like he was so sure of it. He knew that God would provide for him, and his confidence in that made me feel like, you know what, God will provide for him, right? And then ever since then, it just keeps sinking in more and more that God will provide. You know, when I say God will provide, I just mean that things will work out if you do everything with love. You know, it might not work out the way you intended. You know, maybe this whole social media thing will collapse into nothing, but then I'll end up living in a monastery somewhere and have a beautiful life, you know? And that's also God will provide. So when you let go of this fear, this feeling of lack, of needing money, of needing things to go a certain way, again, out of lack, and you do everything out of wholeness, out of love, you know, there's just this overflowing, endless, just like love within all of us. It's what we are. And when you tap into that, realize that by, again, seeing through the ego, the barriers, then it's just like life is so much less frightening, you know? And then I posted I was having a beautiful conversation with this guy at this house yesterday. He heard me doing the free 10-minute calls and like came up to me, like starts talking about spiritual stuff. And he's like, so what do you do? How do you make money? Is this like sustainable? I'm like, nah, I'm living off savings. But I literally told him, I'm like, God will provide. I know randomly people are just going to give me like, $1,000, couple hundred here and there. I know it's going to happen. I know there's love out there. And I know that people will take care of you when you take care of them, right? And I was just so sure of it. I wasn't even like a question in my mind. And then literally like within an hour, two separate people donated $200 each on the Ko-Fi and didn't ask for anything in return. It just goes to show you that you basically have to gaslight yourself into assuming things are just going to work out, because they do usually. you know Again, if they don't, they might not work out the way you intended. I might not ever end up having any of these free one-on-one sessions with you guys. Like, you guys, no one will want to do this one-on-one for a month, mentor, whatever you want to call it. And that's okay. It doesn't need to be like that. It doesn't need to be a certain way. The only thing that needs to be there is this just knowing of the love within you, that you're always safe, because the wave is the ocean. You're not afraid to crash because there's nowhere to crash to. It's always life. When that separation, when there's no me and everything else, when there's no me and you, my money, your money, there's no more conflict. There's no, how can there be conflict if there isn't two things? If there isn't me and you, me and life, you and me. If there isn't that too, there's no conflict. There can't be. And that's when God starts to provide for you. And I feel so much freer now that I know I'm not doing this for the money. That it's just, obviously the goal wasn't to do this from the money from the start, but it creeps up on you. You start to get afraid, like, oh, I have to do this and this to make sure people are giving me money so I can sustain myself, and that's normal. But you just notice it. You notice it creeping up. You notice how you start to feel lack, feel fear. You watch it and you hold it with love. You let that fear, that suffering, that worry pass. And then all that's left is just this peace. And if I can't just exist in that feeling of abundance, right? Who am I to sell a $3,000 course to people, right? Like, isn't that silly? If I feel fear to the point where I'm like manipulating people to pull as much money out of them as I can, how can I then counsel them, guide them to being more loving and accepting? It's hypocritical, really. And it's not like that business model is wrong. Obviously, for people it works. And if someone's willing to pay the money, sure, go for it. But in this spiritual realm, selling knowledge like that is just evil. It's like hiding peace and love behind a paywall, right? How can you hide peace and love behind a paywall? That's so like criminal, right? But yeah, that was a beautiful day, real like transformative day going through that. And, I have a lot of loved ones to thank for being there with me as I worked through that. You guys especially have been so supportive. I was very open about this whole situation with you guys, and you were all so loving. I've already had like 4 people give me money to buy meals, which is funny. Like, someone told me to buy Popeyes. Thankfully, he's okay with me getting grilled chicken instead, because fried food gives me the runs, like bad. Yeah, and like someone asked me for like super intricate ramen details, like told me a specific thing to get, which I'll look for in Bucharest. And it's just like, I think it's fun to like interact with you guys like that. Because it's not like you guys are, of course you're giving me money in the sense that the money is going into my bank account. But because there's no me, because the me, this ego, this self, is so illusory, it's not like it's my money and your money anymore. It's just, the money is just being used to further love, to spread this peace. And that's why I've talked to a lot of you guys who are like, who almost regret choosing to pursue money in their life. and feel like it's evil. It's not evil to make money. It's evil to hoard the money for yourself. But if you make money and you use that money to just spread love, I mean, that's what it's for, right? You know, if you could buy anything in the world, a yacht, a giant house, a million friends, wouldn't you choose to use that money to spread love and peace and joy to as many people as possible? I mean, what else would you do? Like, genuinely. Like, tell me, what else would you do, right? I could have a $10 million mansion and I would be just as depressed, just as upset as if I had $1 million house somewhere or $100,000 house somewhere. If I wasn't using my time, my money, to just spread love more and more. And I really hope that I'm a little bit of an inspiration for you guys. You know, I'm not telling you to quit your job and like run away to an ashram somewhere, but you can. It's always an option. And that gives you that safety net you need sometimes to know that you don't have to do what you're doing if you don't love it. You can always go to an ashram or monastery somewhere and just live there. Get closer to God, closer to love, find more peace within. It's always an option. And that gives you that stability, that safety net to then pursue the things you really want to do. You know, if I didn't know that I could always go back to that Buddhist monastery in Colorado and just like be surrounded by so many loved ones, if I didn't know that option was there, I probably wouldn't have taken this risk to go travel on my savings and just purely post content. Like, it's a pretty stupid decision if we're being honest, right? But just having that safety net made me feel comfortable enough, safe enough to take a risk, to take the leap, to then just like spread love as far as I can. I mean, I think that's everything for this topic. I'm in the midst of, again, like building that school community with a bunch of courses and stuff, free for sure, of course. And also doing more of these calls and then hopefully starting to do these free one-on-one month-long mentorship things. If you guys are interested, DM me about it, all right? Obviously, I can't do it with everyone, so it's going to be like a limited spot thing. But really, it has to be a completely free up front. Only at the end, you can just ghost me if you want to. But if you do feel changed, I assume you'll support with love, you know? To spread the love a little further. And if not, then that's just karma, man. I mean, it's out of my control, right? And when things are out of your control and you know they're out of your control, it just takes a big weight off your shoulders. And that's what it means to give your life to God, to life. All right, I think that's everything, guys. All love. I mean, if you do, again, DM me if you're interested in that one-on-one thing. The Ko-Fi link to support me by buying me meals, etc. And also it has like more information about the long-term retreat vision, buying land, building a retreat center. Yeah, I'll quickly mention that. Yeah, I mean, long-term goal, like, I don't know how many years from now, but whenever it makes sense, the money's there. It's to just buy acres of land somewhere and just build a space where we can all just like rest in presence and love together. Because again, being face to face with other people who've realized no self, this endless love, is the quickest way to speed run enlightenment. So that's really the goal. Create like a safe, loving space like that. That's what all this stuff is building to. But it seems like that's just an aspect of this journey now. I used to see that as like the end goal, what everything is building up to. But it's not. That's just a part of it. The quote unquote end goal, what this is all building up to, is to just help as many of you guys realize that you're always safe, always loved, to give you all that like breath of fresh air, you know? That's what the goal of this all is. And I love you guys, all right? And I know you guys love me too. All right, I'll see you guys next week.